Now I'd like to welcome back Pauline Sewards.
Yay! Thank you. Thanks for the mic adjustment. It's brilliant. I think so. Does this seem right to everyone?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. I really enjoyed the two poets so far in this half. So good. Like Richard, I'm not religious, but I do love places with sort of religious iconography and things. This is quite a gentle poem about my great-grandmother who lived, it was quite strange, they lived near the church. They had a little footpath to the church, and there were sort of 8 oak trees beside the hedge, and it's all kind of gone now. It's just a mound of earth where their house used to be. Sorry, I can't find that poem now, so I'm not going to read it. Never rely on an iPad. Never think, hey, I could put all my poems in this and it wouldn't be too heavy to carry. Just never do that, because you look a total kind of arse and you can't find your poems, so I'm so sorry. I'm going to read some Soho poems. This is these are based on a book by Barry Miles, which I urge you to read, called London Calling, and it's based on the information in that book, and I told him about it and he was kind of happy, so it's okay. But it's just about it's kind of like pre-1940s, this part. I kind of found it the most interesting part of the book, although it goes on to the 60s. This is kind of just after the war. Fine dining in Soho, 1930s to 1970s. Shrunken, anatomical, floating in vinegar in a large kilner at the end of the bar. The gherkins were given away with beer, wine, spirits, and eventually absinthe dripping green and slow onto deliquescing sugar cubes. The clubs handed out food for free, but it was not intended to be eaten. Curling edge sandwiches and dusty cocktail sausages were recycled on paper plates, existed solely to make drinking legal. To scoff one of the spam-filled sandwiches would reveal explicit hunger and a rude neglect of the art of acerbic conversation. Far better, insult your neighbour, be incontinent, throw up your gin. That was the code at the time. So, following on from that, Nina Hammett was a person who was an artist, and her life turned out rather sadly, and this is a poem from the point of view of Nina Hammett's dress. In the early days, before the war, yes, the first one, darling, she didn't have much use for me. I watched from the coat stand while her limbs and face were drawn, painted, exaggerated, elongated by Robert Fry and Modigliani. Later, as the sunlight filtered through the slatted studio shutters, her... I'm so sorry. It's kind of gone weird. Later, as the sunlight filtered through the slatted studio shutters, her limbs were drawn all over again with fingertips and kisses. I waited to be needed. I was not too bright or showy, but I was expensive and well made. But she treated me badly, splattered oils that formed a dark contusion on my chest. She took me out in winter time, hidden below her naphthalene furs. Her berry sat at a jaunty slant as she toured the bar stools of Fitzrovia. In a foxed Venetian mirror I saw my skirts grow shabby as she rattled her tobacco tin for money in exchange for stories of that glamorous life before the war. Careless with her gin, she soaked me often as she trilled her unrefusable request. Got any mun, hun? Got any mun, hun? Surprisingly, she had retained enough joie de vivre to cast me off at night, while she scrabbled with a lover and the mice beneath her greying sheets. She let my seams burst out. My hucks and eyes were unreplaced. Her belly swelled with alcohol and I grew out of shape. One January the 1st, she took me to the cleaners, delivered me with shaking hands. She was making a fresh start. No more booze. But by the time she collected me, she was back on the sauce. The sweating and the waking dreams had proved too hard and I was ruined. The gin had worn my threads into a spoonful of dust. Thanks for your patience. Okay, so I'm going to read 3 more poems. I've got, I don't know if you remember the children's game, it's a bit sinister, called The Bells of St Clement's, like oranges and lemons. I wrote this after I was back, well, sort of where the poem that I didn't read you, where I was brought up. There was, I was there in November, and this is called Remembrance. Grandad was a collar stud, pearl and silver. Uncle was a uniform button, the regiment's insignia. Poppy Day parade was a long black river through the market town, petals of grief riding the march time of the drums. Surnames etched on the stone memorial were the same as the ones in the school register. The never-born children of the venerable boys played alongside us at tag, catch, farmer's den, and the shuddering conclusion of the bells of St Clement's. And this one is kind of following on from that, about the Second World War, and it's based on a programme that was on the radio introduced by Martha Carney. Any Martha Carney fans? I think she's really great. It's just a kind of story about women who married airmen from abroad in the war. It's called GI Bride. It was a bit of a thrill. We weren't meant to admit it. The uniforms in the high street, those creamy stateside accents. It was a bit of a puzzle. We didn't understand it. The black troops separate from the white officers. There was bad stuff going down, friends said, but all I knew was the thrill, getting bussed into the dances, Saturday nights at the aerodrome, big bands in the officers' mess, the boom boom of my heart. He was gorgeous in uniform, smelled clean, unlike a dairy farmer or a clunch ploughman. He was Washington, DC, or New England in the fall. I was a jitterbug in faced-up cottons, ink-drawn seam imitating stockings, my fingernails tarted up with green enamel. Don't you know there's a war on, Mother said. I did. That's why I kissed so hard. And I'm going to finish with this one, and it's about my, well, I guess this poetry cafe is probably about my third favourite cafe. And this is about my second favourite cafe, which is called Cafe Otto. And it's, yay, and it's about synesthesia, where you kind of see colours become tastes and things, which lots of people have. I like finding out other people who've got this. I've only got it a little bit, but it's quite enjoyable actually. It kind of makes you get double value listening to music. This is Synesthete's Night Out at Cafe Otto. This is an impression of an impression, the hyper-real of ketchup in a painting, a kid's wax crayon drawing, a pulp paperback, lurid and lovely, a pastiche of unstitched pop songs. Club cut hair is feather black on cheekbones, basket weave lantern throws honey light, condensation falls on the window to the street. Everything stands for something else. Beside the prepared piano, blonde wig over her filbert head, the woman sings of sparrows and white flowers. Only her scarlet stockings anchor her to the earth. My hands slices acid trails in air. You decant cold Brooklyn beer into my wineglass. Everything stands for something else. The 2-minute encore satisfies brains bathed in dissonance.